Rima, you can start.
Hi, can we begin now?
Yes.
Yes. Good evening, everyone. This is Rima, and I will be moderating this session. I would like to start out by thanking everybody to be here today, our esteemed guests and also our participants. And we are here to discuss right to education today. And we all know how that has changed due to pandemic and so many other socio-economic changes around the world. So I believe that more than me, the esteemed panelists here today can throw more light upon the subject. So before starting all of this, I would like to give a brief introduction of our of our esteemed speakers here today. I would like to start by introducing, just a second. Um, Mr. John K. Chandy. He is a specialist in community education. He's the CEO of Hepta Contino, which is a student requirement organization in Irish universities. Then Danny Gatsky, she is the applied scholastic coordinator in Ireland, and Bernard Percy, who is not here today, and but I'd still like to introduce him. Education and the co-founder and editor in chief of Coverage Magazines, an award-winning education magazine USA. Ms. Shaleen Das, who is the Youth Human Rights International State Leader and Human Rights Activist and Trainer for India and Mauritius Chapter, and Advocate Mehak Rathi, who is the Delhi High Court Coordinator for Youth for Human Rights International India. So our modus operandi for today is we thought of giving all of our speakers here the floor for 5 minutes each, so that they could talk about the subject, and then we can take the questions from our participants. Is that okay?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, ma'am. So let's start with Mehak, ma'am, if that's okay.
Thank you so much, Rima. I welcome you all to today's session on right to education. This is such an important thing that we are discussing today, and I'm glad that all of my co-panelists are here today to talk about right to education. Before I begin, I would like to start with a quote by Nelson Mandela, which says that education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. I would completely agree with this. Education indeed can bring in a lot of changes, and education has the power to change the world, of course. But now, when we are talking about education, since I am from India, I was very active in legal aid, doing workshops in my law school during my law school. So, of course, here the literacy rate is not very good. Of course, we are improving, but still we need a lot to do. So what I've observed is there is lack of awareness, especially among the poor section of the society. There's lack of awareness as to what education can do to bring a change in your life, how education is helpful. People are still not very much aware of power of education. So yes, all of us sitting here today, we are all educated people, especially I think most of the audience is from India. So what I would like you to do is, I have a humble request. Whosoever you see, if you have a driver working with you, if somebody is working with you and not sending their kids to school, just talk to them, explain them how education can be really helpful. That is how things will change. If we are, let's say, 30 of us, and each one talks to 10 people, then we can at least get maybe 300 people educated. So small changes, of course, bring in big change. That is what I was talking about. I wanted to talk about. Of course, we have our co-panelists, my co-panelists, who will be talking about right to education, why education is important, and what all we can do to ensure that everybody has this right. Having a right is one thing, and implementation of that right is another thing. So yes, we are talking about implementing right to education. We want everybody to be educated. And now what education is, of course, when I've conducted over 200 webinars in past 1 year, and there is like 70% of the audience is mostly concerned with the certificate. That is not what true education is. If your focus is on the certificate, if your focus is, of course, that is there, that is an added thing. But educate yourself whenever you're coming to a session, whenever you are attending, just be there and think, okay, I'm going to take something from it. That is what makes that is what will make a difference. If you are in a session, listen to it, get to learn things. Now when we are talking about online education, now of course entire COVID was unforeseen, and what was more unforeseen, that this drastic shift on technology. All of us are here today, we are using Zoom, but there are so many who are not well acquainted with all these applications, especially yes, there is poverty in a lot of the underdeveloping countries. They do not have access to technology, so they of course have suffered a lot. They are that is the challenge of it. But before this session began, we were talking, this also has an advantage. I don't think so all of us would have been able to do this offline, coming to one particular venue, talking about right to education. So let's take optimum benefit out of it. Online, online is a good platform. We all are here, we are talking about right to education. But whenever you're attending any session online, whenever you're doing anything online, just make sure that you take something out of it. And if we are talking about right to education, it is a responsibility of all the participants sitting out here. Most of you are from law background, as far as I'm aware. It is your responsibility to take the word forward and ensure that education, right to education, does not stay as a human right, and everybody gets access to this right. That is what is most important. Yes, we will take up all the questions. We will take up all the questions at the end. Yes, that is what I wanted to say about education, about my experiences, and yes, I'm glad I'm here today. Over to you, Rima.
Thank you for sharing, ma'am. And it is rightly, and you rightly underlined the essence of education, how it has changed over time, and how it is the unprecedented times have also changed the idea of education for us. Should we move on to Charlene, ma'am, now? Yes, ma'am.
Yes, yeah. First of all, namaste to everyone who all are watching us today. And I know we have all the viewers, they are mostly law students, law professor. So recently we celebrated Teachers' Day. So I would like to wish all the teachers out there a belated happy Teachers' Day. And yes, today we are here to talk about the right to education. For that, all the human being, all the individuals should go through this book. Article number 24 talks about the right to education here in this book. Yes, and article number 24, it talks about that, yes, every kids like youth, they deserve and they have proper right to their education. And as Mehak said, like in the COVID pandemic, we face a lot of problems. Like earlier time, the kids used to go to the schools, but when COVID-19 came up, we all came up in digital world, and half of the parents, maybe those who were staying in the remote area, they don't have proper net connection, they don't have smartphones, and those kids are not getting those right so that they can join online schooling. And maybe half parents are there, they cannot afford smartphones. So these things are happening. So sometimes we really feel bad, but still we can reach a lot of people if we can do, like, if we can force them. No, we have to find out some ways so that those kids have the proper right to the education. Even education, the Right to Education Act in Indian Constitution comes under article number 21A. It talks about no every youth, especially from 4 years to 14, they have the proper right to education. And yes, and today in this webinar, we will cover up many new things which we don't know. Like we will come to know about what is applied scholastic, who is Elrond Hubbard. For that, Danny is there for that. Captain John is there to talk about those things. And yes, like I'm Bengali, so I know that Ravindranal Tagore, he himself is a greatest famous Indian poet, non-European poet who won Nobel Prize in the year of 1930. So John sir will carry on he will say a few words regarding him, what messages he left, like Ravindranal Tagore, regarding education. So over to you, John sir.
Thank you very much, Shailene. I will just share my screen. Good morning, everybody in the USA. Good afternoon, everybody, those who are in Europe, and good evening, Asia. I am very happy to be here with a small presentation which I have prepared, and it is covering the topic of education and human rights. About me, I was a commissioned officer in the Indian Army who opted out at the age of 28 to start my business a long time back in 1989. I got my training in Officers Training School. Now it is Officers Training Academy, Chennai. And the photograph shows me getting promoted as a captain in my brigade headquarters somewhere in northern sector on Pak border. And my current status is I am the CEO of Hepta Continental Incorporated, and I am a graduate in BSc with a diploma in automobile engineering, MBA in 3 fields, and I am a specialist in international trade also. And in Ireland, I have completed 3 courses of training, and my present activity is student recruitment exclusively to universities of Ireland. In addition to that, I keep interest in sports and games. I play tennis, yoga, and my passion is community education, because I used to be a part of National Service Scheme when I was a college student, and I used to spend more time in community activities in slums and government schools. And that passion is still with me. In Ireland, I am promoting community education using a technology called applied scholastics. My dream is to start a chain primary school all over the world with a standardized education pattern, especially in India. In India, we have got very much stress on higher education, but the primary education is more important, because if we make input into primary education, that thing remains within the country. If investment is made in higher education, that money flows out of the country, because the students are going out of the country for better jobs and other things. Now, there is a list of human rights. In 1948, the United Nations prepared a list of 30 subjects which are covered as human rights. All human rights are born free and equal. There is no discrimination to be done between them. Right to life, no slavery, no torture, no inhuman treatment, same right to use law, equality before law, right to be treated fair by courts, no unfair treatment, right to trial, innocent until proven guilty, right to privacy, freedom to movement and residence, right to asylum, right to nationality, right to marry and have family, right to own things, freedom of thought and religion, freedom of opinion and expression, right to assemble, right to democracy, right to social security, right to work, right to rest and holiday, right of social service, right to education, which we are discussing here, right to cultural and art forms, freedom around the world, subject to law, and the 30th one is human rights cannot be taken away. I will add one more right here. From the last 1.5 years, we are seeing that internet access is required for education. So we can add up right to internet access to this list. We can take up with the United Nations to do that. Now, Coming to the situation of human rights in the world, 7 continents all over the world have different cultures, different levels of implementation of human rights exist in different countries and cultures because of the phase difference between the level of exposure to technology and education. Discrimination on 9 grounds of the following factors is prohibited at any workplace. There cannot be a gender discrimination, discrimination based on marital status, whether a person is married, unmarried, or divorced. Discrimination cannot be done. Family status, then age, disability, sexual orientation, race, color, and all, religion, and membership of traveler community. If a person is from the gypsy community, he cannot be discriminated against. And this is the background. Before I go into education part, the role of education in creating awareness of human rights is very important. If education is there among the masses, they will be aware of their rights as a human being. Education standards play a big role in creating awareness of human rights. However, the levels of education vary all around the world. In some parts, it is say 95%. In some parts, it is, you can say, 30%. That disparity exists. And all around the world, there have been crusaders of human rights and education, and they have struggled and implemented human rights in various countries. In India, we are aware of many leaders in different states, but 3 names come into my mind, and one is Mahatma Gandhi, then Ravindranal Tagore, and Rajaram Mohan Roy, who stopped the culture of sati system in India. I will talk a little about Ravindranal Tagore because the time is very limited. He lived between 1861 and 1941. He won the Nobel Prize in 1913 for his book Gitanjali. And this is the highest international prize for literature, and he achieved it. You have a close look over here. Before social media came into the world through internet, there used to be social networking. And the leaders with higher capabilities and intelligent quotients anywhere in the world, they used to travel all over the world and meet people of their mental level in olden times. Mahatma Gandhi traveled to UK for education, and I am wondering how much time he would have spent in a ship while he was traveling from, say, Mumbai to London. That time, this Suez Canal may not be used as it is used these days. So in those days, also people used to travel and do social networking. You can see Ravindranal Tagore networking with Mahatma Gandhi, Jawaharlal Nehru, and even with Albert Einstein. The school, Shanti Niketan, was started by Ravindranal Tagore with a novel revolutionary system. He believed that children will be happier if they are taught in the natural surroundings or at their home itself, rather than plucking them away from the happiness of home and putting them in cellular places in schools. He started Shanti Niketan, the abode of peace. Here you can see Tagore with a few of his students. Tagore's education principles are based on the observation that children are happy when they do practical things outside the classrooms. Even today, you will find children happier when they are outside the classrooms. He started a Kala Bhavan, a home of art, which was a special part of Shanti Niketan to develop traditional art forms. Here, using Tagore's philosophy, you can see a lady spinning a dari or a small mat, colorful one. And in the second picture, you can see a lady weaving a large piece of cloth sitting in her home. where she can take care of her children. At the same time, her productivity is used as an economic activity for producing something. Tagore's education principle is that the educational environment should be facilitated in the natural environment of the child or the student. This girl is making a garland, sitting with her mom. She is not sitting in her school. She is sitting with her mom and she is creating beautiful garments. Indira Gandhi was a student of Shanti Niketan. Here you can see her standing behind Tagore wearing a sari. Jawaharlal Nehru sent Indira Gandhi to Shanti Niketan because he understood the importance of education in a different way. Tagore's purpose was to create happy students. And he explained to the world that education can be done differently, and he was successful. And he started Shanti Niketan, which was elevated to the level of Vishwabharati University, where Nobel laureate like Amartya Sen studied. In two different continents, two revolutionaries in the field of education, active in the field of education and human rights, they lived almost in the same time. A person was born in America. His name is Elrond Hubbard. He was born in 1913 when Tagore was given the Nobel Prize for Literature. This person is a genius and he has done a lot of things in different fields. I will not talk about that because there is a session on that after this. And he developed applied scholastics. What it is, I'm not speaking because there is a session after this. In my personal experience, by practicing this study technology, which is followed by applied scholastics, I'm an ex-army captain. I was a topper in schools and colleges. I was extraordinary in many fields. But after coming to this system, I realized that I did not know many things. And using these skills, I improved my academic skills. And here in Ireland, in 3 subjects, I achieved distinction and the top position in the class. It would have been not possible if I was not introduced in this system. The second effect of this system is that my business output improved a lot because of this, because I started focusing on many minor points which I was avoiding or about which I was not aware of earlier. This system taught me those things. I was told and trained to become more effective. And the third thing is my focus on cultural integration and human rights. These issues became very well balanced and my mind is more clear as to what the different cultures are wanting and having. And this system helped me to have raise my level. My performance in games and physical activities also improved because I started focusing on minor things of while playing tennis or while doing yoga and all those things. And this system is equally suitable for students, parents, and teachers. So I request all of you who are listening directly in this program or watching live on YouTube, I request all of you to watch what it is and understand what it is. There are barriers in learning anywhere in the world. There are missing things. You can see this girl doing a happy activity of creating garland, and you can see another girl sleeping in the classroom because she is not doing what she is liking. So students in different classrooms what problems they face away from their parents, away from their community, what it is, how you can diagnose that, what role parents can do. All these things will be explained to you in the coming session. And I'm going to wind up my session by telling 2-3 points. There are challenges of education and human rights all over the world because of economic reasons, political reasons, social reasons, and religious reasons. Established systems resist changes. There's a long way to go, and we have to take human rights in a serious way, and education is the only way for achieving that. To conclude, further details on the topic of study technology and applied scholastics will be provided by an expert in the field, and she is none other than Dani Gatke. And I hand over to the presenter to take the discussions further. Thank you very much. Namaste.
Thank you, John, sir. We really appreciate your input. And it is undeniable that happiness is something indispensable from a child's education and overall development. And before we move forward and invite Danny ma'am, I'd like to take the privilege to also introduce Ron sir to the meeting and everybody present over here. So Ron sir has close to 35 years of education and teaching field, and he's personally dedicated close to 10,000 hours of tutoring. He has involved himself in multiple educational projects like community outreach and curriculum development, and he's also currently focusing on tutoring to achieve cost-effective cost-effective overall peer development programs. And before we move on to Ron sir and hand him over, I'd like to call Danny ma'am to share her insights.
Thank you so very much. Thank you. And it's a great pleasure for me to speak here today on that occasion to celebrate with you Teachers' Day, Indian Teachers' Day, and International Literacy Day, which my presentation is geared towards too. So I'm very pleased to be with you, and I'm going to share screen to show you my presentation to give you more answers on what is applied scholastics and who founded that and what is the speciality on applied scholastics. So let me put the slideshow on so you can see it in full. Yeah. My name is Dani Gatke. I'm the Applied Scholastics Coordinator in Ireland. I'm an educator by profession. I come from Germany. I have learned community education, and I was running an Applied Scholastics after school in Berlin. So I have worked with all kinds of different generations and people of ages, students of different ages. And I will give you today a presentation on what is applied scholastics, what makes it so special. Yeah, foremost, Charlene, thank you very much. Charlene, she invited us, Applied Scholastics Ireland, to speak at your event and having us today. And what I want to tell you is this. To the next slide. Applied Scholastics is an international educational network which has the aim to eliminate illiteracy and to provide the tools every learner would need to become a lifelong successful learner. Now imagine this. If you would be able to use everything what you have ever learned in school, imagine for just a moment how fantastic that would be to be able to use everything. So applied scholastics, when you break down these two words, applied comes from application and scholastics means schooling. It means bring to use what you have studied or learned. And what applied scholastics provides is all the tools and materials you would need to become a lifelong successful learner. I will go into that what Applied Scholastic stands for a little bit later and more deeper, but I want to introduce also the author and the developer who has brought us the materials which makes it possible that the student can become successful. Elrond Hubbard, philosopher and educator. One of the most, I would say, the most important world-known philosophers and educator of the last century. He was a person, let me tell you a little bit more about him with a little short summary of his life and for the benefit of those who don't know Elrond Hubbard. The main stages of his life are well known. He was born on the 13th March 1911 in Tilden, Nebraska. Sorry, something is going wrong here. I have to go to share screen again. So he was born on 13 March in Tilden, Nebraska, and spent his childhood in the rough and pioneering state of Montana. He was the nation's youngest Eagle Scout of America at the age of 13 and twice journeyed to Asia before the advent of commercial flights when he was 21 years. Excuse me, I have to fix my PowerPoint presentation here. So I hope this is going now. Yeah, I'll start again. He was the nation's youngest Eagle Scout of America at the age of 13. If there is anyone who could give me a fantastic tip how to fix the slideshow of not going forward on its own, I would appreciate your help.
Maybe try it not full screen and see if that changes it. I don't know. Just an idea.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, then we do it in that way, not full screen.
Danny,
Yeah.
we can do one thing, like you can read the screen slides and you can explain us. That can be done also if you face any problem.
Yeah, we will do it in that way. I think that's better. You can see that, I guess, yeah. So I repeat what I said. He was the nation's youngest Eagle Scout in America of the age of 13 and twice journeyed to Asia before the advent of commercial flights when he was 21 years old. And he attended America's first class on nuclear physics and was a pioneer at the dawn of American aviation. Now, he was one of the first in the 150 first pilots in America, which is awesome. He then later led an expedition into then remote Iceland as member of the famed Explorers Club. And he was a master mariner, licensed to captain vessels on any ocean. and United States naval officers who commanded corvettes during the World War II. Elrond Hubbard is especially known for many discoveries and developments, and I will give you a few. In the field of business and management, he discovered an entire body of laws regarding administration and the methods to monitor production and the tools and to handle any difficulties about businesses and administration. He made the first breakthrough on the subject of logic, the development of the technology to analyze and to understand any situation. Elrond Hubbard was a professional in more than 20 different fields, and some of the greatest scholars of our time stated that Hubbard probably lived 20 lives in the span of one. Hubbard was a writer, pilot, ship captain, explorer, researcher, photographer, biologist, scientist, engineer, music writer, film writer, horticulturist, educator, and philosopher, to name just the main fields. Now think for a moment what it would mean to be a professional in 20 different fields. Just take a second and think about it. Being a professional in 20 or more than 20 different fields. As a writer, which is one of the fields he was a professional, he holds 4 Guinness Book of Records as the most published and translated author of all times, with 1,084 works published in more than 315 million copies in circulation. So one of his genres he wrote was Golden Age of Pulp Fiction, and amongst his 250 stories published, there are immortal titles that will resonate forever in history. And I will show you these ones here. You see Fear, #1 New York Times best-selling author, and then the other one, Typewriter in the Sky. This is just to give you a little glimpse about it, what he has written as an author, what he was known for. Now I want to take a look with you together in the field of education, where his main research found out that there are definite some barriers in study. He said about teaching, we must teach them, our children, in such a way that any normal problem can be readily solved by the children, by them. So with his discovery in that field, I want to go with you together on a little journey on that. How would you call the exact way of doing something? Let's say you have an exact way of making a good cup of coffee or tea, and you know there's a specific way because you like it very tasty. I know that from all of you that you like a tasty coffee or a tea. So there is a specific way of doing that. This is a technology. If you are a driver of a car, then you have certain things, certain steps to do to drive that car. Or if you are a law student, you have to prepare a case for court. There are certain steps, there is a certain way, there is a procedure which you apply to get that ready and to make it a successful thing that you can provide that. And so it goes on, even if you want to fix a water pipe, or a person wants to cut the grass of a lawn, or if you want to teach students, there is a specific way of how to do that, or writing book, or making an online presentation. You see, I have to admit there's one thing I didn't know today, which is how to stop a slideshow from running on its own on automatic. So there's always a certain way, an exact way of doing something. This is called technology. Exact way of doing something to get the result, the specific result you want to have. And Mr. Hubbard, he looked into the field of education and he discovered a study technology, because there has never been existed a true technology of study. There had been a technology of schooling, including shaping curricula and planning sessions. Through his close observations and studies, Mr. Hubbard identified the 3 barriers to study. Yeah, so I say that again because it's really important. There are 3 barriers to study. And he developed the means to remove those barriers and those illiteracy. And I can tell you some data from Ireland, and I'm not sure how the data is in India, but in Ireland, we have an illiteracy rate of 1 out of 5 people have problems with literacy, and 1 out of 4 people have problems with maths. So that means if you have 100 people, 20 people of them, or 25 people, they are in trouble in some or the other way in that subject, which is not good, because this is the situation. You have a teacher tries to teach something, and then you have a student, and the student, he has a question mark in his mind because there's something what he's not fully understanding. And with that non-understanding, he will literally end up in trouble, which is not pleasant, as we can see. So I want to show you now the 3 barriers on study, the barriers to study, which Elrond Hubbard has codified, and he has found out that the first barrier a person can experience when you study something and you don't have the real things or the objects you study about, it is called lack of mass in study technology. So if you don't have the real objects, then you could end up with some physical reactions, which you see here, like a person who really gets angry because cannot understand. Or if you ever experienced that your eyes started to hurt and to burn, or you maybe felt dizzy, or you felt really lifeless, like literally as if you have worked 48 hours, but you just have sit down for 2 hours in the lecture room, but you felt so KO. This is lack of mass. You was listening to something and the real object on what you were studying about was not there. And here you have some more physiological reactions or manifestations you can observe on students. And when I was running my Applied Scholastic Center, my learning center in Berlin, and the parents and students came, I showed these pictures to the students and I was asking, did you ever experience something like that? So did you look like that at some point? I said, yes, in mathematics. You see these students, they are looking like sitting bent from the body position, or they are bent over a book and not really enjoying it. This is lack of mass. The real objects are not there. So the second barrier in study is this called too steep a gradient. Usually you learn step by step something to become a professional in something. And these steps, they build on each other. So if you are able to do one thing, then you go to the next thing and then to the next thing. And I can tell you one example, which I experienced. A boy, 11 years old, he came to my after school, and the mom said he cannot read and write, and he will never be, she said, because he just will not. And I found out with him when I was asking him, hey, I showed him an A, the letter A. I said, do you know what kind of sound you have to make with your mouth when you see that symbol? And he waved his head. He said, no, I don't. And I taught him each of the very beginning sounds, like from an A and from an M. And he started to read and mama. It sounds really so much at the beginning, you wouldn't believe it, but after 3 weeks, but just doing that, he was able to read. And that was unbelievable. After 5 years that we found the right, we cut it back to the point where he first was lost. And that was in the very, very first lesson in school. Then we have the third barrier, which is called the misunderstood word. Now, have you ever seen a person, probably by yourself, experienced, you read a book, you come to the end of the page, and then you ask yourself, what did I just read? And you don't even know anymore what you read. And I can assure you, if this is happening to you, then on that page, you will find some words which are not fully understood. You wouldn't have a definition for them. And that would make you feeling like you have not understood the full page. And that's what you can observe. You see people with a blank look or completely disinterested, or they have some other ideas, they daydreaming and looking out of the window. That's what you can observe in classrooms very often. These are misunderstood words. And Elrond Hubbard, he said, when a person is not functioning well on his job or life, at the bottom of his difficulties will often be found unknown basic definitions and laws, or false definitions, false data, or false laws, resulting in an inability to perform the simplest required functions. The person will remain unfamiliar with the fundamentals of his activity, at times appearing idiotic, because of these not defined and falsely defined words. This is a quote from the Basic Study Manual, one of our training materials. So, of course, why do students feel bored, uninterested, frustrated, or angry? And even the teachers, why do they feel like that? Because they are seeing the students. There is one main problem which is in our education system, and that was mentioned by Mahak at the beginning, because our education system focuses very, very much on passing tests and people thinking if they are learning the facts by rote and memorizing everything and then they pass the test, then this is learning. Obviously it's not, because the true test, how good one can do something, is how well one understands what he has learned. And only with a lot of practice, you can use what you learn. And I think that would apply even to a law student. I was thinking, what kind of example could we look at it? Of course, if you do your first case, that might be not going really fluently, but there are things which needs to be understood and then practiced and practiced. And then at the end, you are a perfect lawyer when you know all your tools and all the steps. And this is the true test. And the man who is not with us today, he was announced as one of the presenters, Bernard Percy, great teacher, I can tell you. He said to me, please, Danny, bring the message from my presentation to the audience and tell the audience what makes a great teacher. So I have 12 points brought from him as a message. Bernard Percy is an alumnus of Columbia University, a creator of the Foundation of Brilliance, and he has educated primary school students and adult students, literally every age, you could say. And I will tell you now his message on what makes a great teacher. A great teacher, they have high standards and expectations that they don't want compromise, and they dare to dream of truly making a difference in their students' lives. They are the restless individuals, innovative thinkers. They don't want to adapt or conform to the world around them. When that world has limited expectations of what a teacher can do or achieve, then they would go over that and find new ways. What makes a great teacher? They challenge students to think differently, innovatively, and not merely adjust to their environment. They are comfortable in a space with motion, action, and innovative thinking. And they help students and find their true purposes, develop their unique special talents, and ensure they develop certainty in their ability and to overcome obstacles and achieve their dreams. What makes a great teacher? They create space for students to find and develop belief in their own potential. They create special positive moments where a student has a realization or experience that positively affects his or her life forever. They seek the real barriers that prevent students from learning, and they're helping students learn the skills, gain the knowledge, and develop the abilities to be problem solvers. What makes a great teacher is they never see the child only as a statistic or a number, but as worthy of a recognition of his own or her own individuality. And What makes a great teacher is they strive to put up and keep the joy in learning, and they are willing to find the magic residing in each child. And the last and most powerful message he always has given to teachers and to students is, a great teacher is a dream maker and not a dream breaker. So what makes a great teacher? They help students find their true purposes, develop their special talents, and ensure they develop certainty in their ability to overcome obstacles and achieve their dreams. And then we have a person, you can see in the person's facial expression, what have people in common when they have success? You can see that they are happy. And what is it what they have in common? Competence, because ability to do well in what one does, it is a quality or a state of having sufficient knowledge, judgment, skill, or strength, so you can do something successfully and efficiently. And this applies not only on the sports field, that applies as well in the field of education, when you have a classroom or and learning circumstances, learning setups. And I want to come close to the end of my presentation with a quote from Elrond Hubbard. He says, "The end and goal of a society as it addresses the problem of education is to raise the ability, the initiative, and the cultural level, and with all these, the survival level of that society." And this is what we have. Students are not taught how to study or how to learn. I mentioned that before. And they are just told to learn or to learn harder. But if you don't know how to learn, how can you learn? So our materials, Applied Scholastics materials, for example, learning how to learn is one of the materials which is giving a student or a teacher the tools and the information on the barriers to study and how to remedy it. You have seen me talking about the barriers. I could give you a full presentation on how to really apply study technology. So I will not do that today because our time is limited, but I want to mention that Applied Scholastics has literally all the tools and materials to educate or to help a person, be it a student or a teacher or a tutor. Everyone can learn fantastic skills and information on how to learn and how to acquire that knowledge that you are able at the end to really apply it. And it's all guarded in a direction of application. And here's a little statistic on the numbers of Applied Scholastics activities and educators trained. By now, there are 170,000 educators trained in study technology. And what I want to point out is a statistic which comes up again and again, and you will observe that if a person uses the study technology, then you will see an increase of efficiency in the learning outcome, because a person is to 35% more able to score better and also to apply what they have learned. That brings me to our last slide, or one of the last slides. We have started in Ireland to train learning coaches, which is fantastic. And Ron Siegel, he's going to tell you more about it. Yeah, if you have more questions about Applied Scholastics or about Applied Scholastics materials, just contact me or go to www.appliedscholastics.org. That's the international website. You can follow us on Facebook, or you can contact me on that email you see here, info@appliedscholastics.ie. Or if you are interested to really learn the study technology, then I would suggest you to go to Applied Scholastics Learning Center, Applied Scholastics, or appliedstudyskills.org. Yeah, with that, I'm going to stop share screen. Thank you for listening, and sorry for the little glitch at the beginning of my presentation. As I said, I have to learn something too.
No problem, Danny. It was fantastic. For the viewers, it was quite new thing to know about applied scholastic and study technology by Elrond Hubbard. And as we said, if anybody is interested, they liked it, please show us a thumbs up. So for the next webinar, we will come up with the new things and we'll do a workshop on study technology. Now we have a surprise guest speaker all the way from California, that is Ron Siegel. So over to you, sir. So please say a few things, a few words regarding your journey and the right to education, what you think regarding right to education.
Perfect. Thank you. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Great. So yeah, my name is Ron Siegel, and I am a
So yeah, we cannot hear you, Ron, sir. No, we cannot. Danny, can you hear Mr. Ron?
No, I cannot hear him. Seems to be a button or something. Yeah, just
Maybe some network issues.
I will give him a note on that.
I'll just request all the viewers to stay with us till the session is on. So we are just giving some time. Yeah.
Can you hear it now or no?
Yeah, we can. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Okay, good. What about now?
Yes, perfect.
Perfect. Okay, fantastic. Wow, it's been a day of technical things. Let me share my screen again. All right, fantastic. So yeah, so I'm a long-term educator. I've done tens of thousands of hours of tutoring, teaching, training teachers, community outreach, working in professional curriculum, worked with high-tech companies, etc. What I want to show you is an actual app that I've had developed that will help give the right to education to many more people, because it's intended to make access to education, equity, results much more accessible on a wide scale. So as you can see, the mission is to make the world a thriving learning community where all people become great students and great teachers. And if we focus on building teachers and building students, we can then, of course, move forward. So one of the things that I've looked at when I've been looking at how can I really help people on a bigger scale, I've obviously done a lot of tutoring and teaching, but how do I start expanding that outward? One of the huge problems that we kind of all know, but it's a design flaw. It's a design problem in most education, which is that you can't teach a big mass. Ultimately, you have to teach individuals. Even if you have a class of 10 students, 15 students, you can't teach the class. You have to teach Bob, and you have to teach Susie, and you have to reach them, and it's difficult. If you have even 20 students, which is not at all considered a large amount, in 1 hour, if you divided the time, you'd have 3 minutes for each student. But of course, you have to set up and clean up, so you really have less. Now, the solution, or a big solution, is peer tutoring. Peer tutoring is where you train kids to tutor other kids, or university students to work with elementary school students. And in this setup, everybody wins. This is an actual picture from a community center where I set up peer tutoring. The student on the left is a volunteer high school student. The student on the right is an elementary school student. And it says here, everybody wins, and I've really seen it to be true. When I've run these peer tutoring programs, I'll have parents telling me how excited they are that their child as a student is getting tutoring. But at the same time, I'll have parents who are excited that their child is volunteering as a tutor, and they say, can you please have them continue to be a tutor? Why? Because they're learning job skills. They're learning how to deal with people. And then when they teach, their own learning becomes reinforced and becomes stronger. They also are earning community service credit if they need that to graduate. And they are gaining experience that they can put on their college application resume and their resume for life. They're gaining tremendous skills. And of course, the teachers by this are being helped because now they have sort of a group of assistant teachers. When you get kids helping in the process, it's not just the teacher. And this is a quote from the US Department of Education, which says that research has shown that well-designed tutoring programs that use volunteers and other non-professionals as tutors can be effective. This is from a more recent article that says that in a recently circulating working paper examining dozens of experimental studies, a team of economists has found that tutoring offers the potential for transformative academic impacts. While teachers and paraprofessionals are those who work with the professionals. So while teachers and paraprofessionals were shown to be the strongest instructors, the authors write, even lightly trained volunteers or family members have the potential to help children realize important learning gains. This is research-based, proven, very effective, and not expensive. It's something we need to take advantage of. This is from India's National Education Policy document of 2020. It's obviously a very large document, but I'm going to show you two excerpts. Here it says that due to the scale of the current learning crisis, all viable methods will be explored to support teachers in the mission of attaining universal foundational literacy and numeracy. Studies around the world show one-on-one peer tutoring to be extremely effective for learning, not just for the learner, but also for the tutor. Thus, peer tutoring can be taken up as a voluntary and joyful activity for fellow students under the supervision of trained teachers and by taking due care of safety aspects. Additionally, it will also be made far easier for trained volunteers from both the local community and beyond to participate in this large-scale mission. I do have two large schools right now in India that are about to start a pilot. If anybody's familiar with Alcon schools, Alcon International, and Alcon Public School in Delhi, I'm excited to partner with them. And in the spring, I will be doing a much bigger pilot with this free app. And anybody is welcome to participate if they know of a school that would like to participate. This is me in the background in the red shirt. And what I would do is just start community programs and I would get adult volunteers, but I would also get student volunteers. And this is from a school in a place called Compton, California. And it's a kindergarten to 12th grade high school. And this is another example of my journey as an educator and trying to reach out on a larger scale. I went to this school and they gave me 3 students who were doing well. These students were doing well in their studies and they said, these can be volunteer tutors. This is me when obviously I went to their graduation. But I met once a week for the school year with these 3 students. And all I did was I gave them a little bit of training once a week on how to be a tutor. The school counselor gave them students who were in need of help and they assigned them to these volunteer tutors. These tutors then worked with them on the school campus for the year. And by the end of the school year, combined, these 3 students had delivered 600 hours of free tutoring right on the school campus. The next year, the principal gave me 25 volunteer tutors, etc. This is about the time when COVID hit, and I realized this is very powerful. With very little effort, we got 600 hours of tutoring. And that's why I decided this needed to be put into an app to better organize it and manage it and keep track of it. This app has the purpose of high quality one-on-one instruction that is widely and easily accessible at a very low cost. On the left, you'll see a screenshot from the app where it has 3 rectangles there. Those are for 3 different ways you can use the app. You can use the app to set up a tutoring program inside your own school or inside your own community organization where you have the tutors and the students in the same school and they match up and it's live, it's in person. The second way is one school could volunteer and give tutoring to another school online in a different geographical location, or you can receive tutoring online from another school. So in my app, I have schools from different locations. Maybe one university has tutors that are helping an elementary school, et cetera, et cetera. And again, this is just from the app to show you can click on delivery, means if you're volunteering, recipient, if you're getting tutoring from another school online, or internal means it's all happening inside your own school. On the left, you see it says partner organizations, and on the right, it says potential partner organizations. So if my school has volunteers, I would click the button on the right and see what organizations need help. And then we could find out about them. It has a little information, maybe their website. I can message that school and say, I'm interested in working with you. And eventually, if I see a school that I want to help, then I could click a button that says request to partner. And if they say, yes, we'd like to partner with you, then they're connected on the app. And now that school will appear on the left as a partner organization. We're connected. And this is the view, for example, that an administrator might see. He could look at, like a school administrator, he can click on the tutors button and see the tutors that are delivering the tutoring. He can look at the students to see who's receiving the tutoring. You could also put teachers in on the app, and the teachers can be involved and they can send messages to the tutors or the students. For example, the teachers could say to a tutor, hey, your student just flunked adding fractions, so could you please help him? This just shows that you can send messages via the app so that students and tutors and teachers can message each other and communicate. But because it is done via the app and not on the phone, it is safer because the school can see all the messages. They know what's being communicated. The parents can see it, and it's a safe way to communicate. This just shows again that it says on the top left, name of tutor. This would be row by row. This was from the original design of the app. So it has each row has the same name, but in reality, each row would be a different tutor. And it has your tutors. You could get information about them. What are their skills, etc. You could message them and so on. You could also here look at your students and so forth. Hey, it looks like somebody raised their hand, and I hopefully, does the host want to see if they have a question? Happy to answer right away.
Yes, somebody is having some question. So Dr. Rajiv, you can go on with your question. Rima, can you just check?
I'll check with him, and he could also put it on the chat box.
Okay, maybe we'll put it on the chat and then I'll be happy to answer. This is a view that maybe a student could see. They could see what are their upcoming sessions, past sessions, messages. This is just a made up example. Again, these are design screens from the developer. But this would be from the view of a student, and each row would show a session, a tutoring session that this student has received. You'll see there's also a column that says rating. And this is where the student after a session will rate the session on 1 to 10. How did the session go? They can give comments like, that was a good session, or I'm still a little confused about something. The rating and the comments can be seen by the school administrators. They will not be seen by the tutor because we don't want the tutor to be nervous about their rating. But the administrators can look, and so if ratings are low or there are negative comments, they can take action to improve the quality. This app also has training materials to help train these young tutors on how to be good tutors. So it's teaching them the skills on how to reach out. And it's teaching them how to help others to really learn, like we said earlier, not just for the certificate, but so they really understand. It's giving them real life skills. And it can work with anything that has an internet connection can use this app. It could be a phone, a tablet, a laptop, anything that connects to the internet. I do also have a nonprofit, and so that my nonprofit can help in some cases to fund cell phones for children, et cetera, those things that they need to make this happen. This again could be a view from a tutor. The tutor would look, he could click on my students. He could click on the right, his statistics, his upcoming sessions, etc. Again, this would be the view from a tutor. And let's say his student is Amal Chamli. So he would be looking at the folder, a virtual student folder for a student. And each row represents a session that was delivered by the tutor. And it says the date of the session, the time of the session, when did it start and end. It also says what was done. So if you click on that what was done icon, you can make some notes of what you did in that session. What to do next session, you can make some notes. So it has a record of all the sessions. So even if a new tutor came onto the scene, they could get a record and see what was happening. You'll see 3 blue rectangular buttons. And the one on the left says weak areas to improve. And the way that could be used is, for example, if I'm teaching a student algebra and I'm tutoring them, but then I notice they can't even multiply, that's a weak area, that is a gap in their education. I'm not going to be able to fix that just in one session. So I'm going to click weak areas to improve, and I'm going to write down in the box that comes up, needs to learn multiplication, etc. So you have a record of things that have been missed so that those can be taken care of. When you schedule a session, like I'm going to show you that 3rd rectangular button says schedule a new session. If you click that, it pops up. You put the date, you put the time. And if you click the online button, which you can see in the upper right, then you can see on the bottom that it says video conference link and password. And you'll insert the link and you'll hit the submit button, and the link will go to your student. But not only that, when you send a video conference link to a student, the app will automatically send a copy of that link to the student's parents, to the tutor's parents, and to the administrators of both schools. So that way a parent knows my daughter or my son is going to have an online session at this time, at this date, and the parent has a link if they want to join. And again, this is a safety feature. In fact, no student or no tutor who's a legal minor, they cannot be activated on the app until their parent signs a consent. So that is done automatically when you put a student or the tutor in the app who's a legal minor. The app sends an email to the parent requesting if they would like to give consent. This is a picture of our development team. It is in India, and they are continuing to work on the app to make it better and better. And again, this is a social enterprise. People are using the app for no charge, for no cost. And what I wrote here on this slide is that CMS is next, and that stands for Content Management System. And that's a fancy way of saying that with this app, you will be able to make any of the courses or any learning guides that you want. For example, a tutor who sees that multiplication is a weak spot can create a little learning guide. And he can say, 1, watch this video about multiplication. Boom. 2, do these problems. 3, write an essay about what you learned. And boom, he sends it, and then it is received online by the student, and he has this little guide, this little course. So you can create guides to teach anything, to teach biology, to teach math, to help a tutor, to help a student, or you can create training modules to train the tutors themselves. And again, these are materials. I will have many materials that I've created for free, but anybody can create their own materials. So as an example, like I said, I may not have said, but I've taught a lot of math. So I've made some videos myself, what is a decimal? What is this? What is that? And some of these I just put up on YouTube, and I've been surprised, like this one has over 160,000 views. So I'm realizing these simple videos really help. These are the kinds of materials that I'm going to put onto my app to make available to anybody to help clear things up and teach. So as I said, in the spring, right now I have some schools in India that are on the app, but in the spring I plan to do it on a very wide scale. So I put my email on the bottom of this slide. If you know of a school that you think might be interested in that big pilot in the spring, you can certainly give them my email. I gave my phone number, which can be used with the app called Signal. If you're not familiar with that, it is a free app which is similar to WhatsApp, but I believe it's more secure, more private. And so anybody can download that Signal app and then call me at that number. But I'm very excited about the potential to just empower a grassroots movement where kids and university students and high school students are just empowered to help each other. And that makes the whole job of education a whole lot easier. And by the way, I've done this in my own teaching. When I teach in school, I constantly train my kids to be tutors and partner them up so that they work together. And if there's any questions, I know there was one earlier, I'm certainly also happy to take them.
We received a few, thank you, sir. We received a few questions, and one of those was, what are some of the most modern problems in education today, and how do you think those can be solved?
What is the most, you said modern?
Modern, yes.
You know, I'll tell you, this is a huge subject. Obviously, there's many, 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 many problems with education. But honestly, in my experience, if I would, where do I want to start? You know, because when you have a big puzzle, you got to take one piece and start putting something together. And I think the best entrance point is we have to change the model of education from being a person to a large group, because when you try to teach a group, it's just like this big, you're making people into like a physical object. And changing the model from a group to individuals. You have to teach individuals. If you're not teaching an individual, you can't even start. If you're trying to teach, like, just to make it silly, what if I said, okay, I'm gonna have a classroom of 1 million students. Okay, guys, here's the first class. We would recognize that is impossible. Some will understand, some will not, some don't need it, but it's the same even with 20. So you could say, well, we don't have enough teachers to do one-on-one, but if we start changing the model and having our kids help each other kids, I do that in my classroom. So even if I have a classroom with 20 students, I break it down. I do some presentation, but then I make small groups. So I think that's the biggest problem, is that we teach a mass. We don't teach people, we teach a machine, this big blob, this thing. And we need to change it to education is individual. And peer tutoring, I think, is a way to do that without a lot of cost, because otherwise you also have to be realistic. I can say many grand things of what education should be, but where do we start? What can we honestly do right now, and then work from there?
Rightly said, sir. And one other question that we received was, access to education itself has been a struggle for a lot of people. And with the pandemic and with other teaching structures coming into play, technology has taken the forefront, but a lot of people cannot really afford access to technology. So this is a more opinion-based question. Do you think it's the state's responsibility to have people get access to technology, in a way also connecting it to education?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Here's the thing, when you think about it, look, I will be the first to admit, if there wasn't COVID and everybody could be in person, that is, in my opinion, of course, is better. However, you have to, we can't stop, you know. So laptops and cell phone devices, all we need is an internet connection. And that is very low cost. We don't need to get super fancy. In other words, at least the way I'm looking at it, with this peer tutoring system, as long as they can connect to each other, now they can meet, teach, share content, they can share videos. In other words, we don't need a huge fancy technology. Let's start with just an internet connection, a device. And for example, that's why I do have a nonprofit. I'm going to try to help give people devices where they don't have them. Many underserved kids, at least many will still have at least a phone or something, but many don't also. So I think if governments and nonprofits worked on just a simple device to connect to the internet, that opens huge possibilities, just that alone.
Right, sir. Thank you. And next questions would be open for everyone. And this is a more global scenario-based question. With the advent of Taliban, we see, and the statements they've made with respect to education, limiting the access of education to women, and also shutting down a lot of educational institutions. Where do you think a right to education stands on a global level today?
Uh, I would like to take your question, and I would like to speak in Hindi because few guys were telling that they don't understand English, so I will tell them in Hindi. एक चीज है जो तालिबान में of course हो रहा है, women rights, women education. First of all, रीमा, एक चीज है that article number 26 talks about the right to education. हम लोग घर में जब कोई बेटा और बेटी होता है, like we always think that the guy should go to to an English medium school and the female should go to an Hindi medium or any native language school. But ऐसा नहीं करना चाहिए. Women, जो women rights है, जो women rights, when we talk about women rights education, लड़की को पढ़ाओ, लड़की को बचाओ. If you educate a female child, later on when she will get married, later on when she will become a mother, she can infuse those morals, those education to their child. So this is very important. For that, we are the person who are raising voice for human rights, because yes, men or women, they have rights, and especially women. And iske liye we are promoting and doing a lot of awareness program uske liye that औरत लोग को रेस्पेक्ट करो, उन लोग को पढ़ाओ, बचाओ. दिस इज रियली रिक्वायर्ड. और उसके लिए हम सारे इंडियंस को और एवरीवेयर ह्यूमन राइट्स सीखना पड़ेगा. उसके लिए ह्यूमन राइट्स, we educate you guys, then only you can spread human rights education, and this is how we can reach a lot of people, we can save a lot of women's life, and we can educate every individual, whether it's a male child or female child. Thank you.
Thank you. Finally, at the grassroots level in India, a lot of people, the main objective in their life or the priority in their life is to find 2 meals a day. Education, more specifically legal education, voter education, is a far-fetched thing, something that is not even on their priority list. Do you think efforts have to be made to, broaden their perspective, infuse voter education and legal education, human rights education more specifically into their lives? Do you think it would, to some extent, help them raise their standards of living?
Yes, of course, because as Danny Mehek, they already said that education plays a very vital role in everybody's life. If we are not educated, we cannot, we cannot get money, or we cannot get any kind of jobs anywhere. We cannot run ourselves. So for that, education is really required. And I would like to request John sir to say a few words regarding this. What do you think, John sir?
Yeah, I was about to raise my hand to answer this point, because I have involved myself in community education as a college student. I used to teach students in slums. And sitting in Ireland, I have seen that everybody wants to go out of India for education and for working. But the 1.4 million population of India cannot be taken over by Russia, America combined together, because the population is huge. And the resources India is having, it is also huge. Alexander the Great in BC 323 didn't go to Berlin or Paris. He came all the way to India because India has got resources. You must understand what I'm talking. And there's no point in going out of the country. The point is to develop the local resources. A tiger or a tigress or a lion or a lioness never send the cubs for training to a training center run by other organisms or other people. They train themselves. The traditional money earning crafts which we had in our villages, it has been smashed by the so-called education. Nobody is wanting to grease the hands. Everybody wants to put on a suit and coat. I'm also doing that because I have to be formal for this occasion. And nobody wants to soil the hands. That is the trend which has come up. We have to change that. We have to bring education into the household, and the parents and the local community should take charge. The parents should learn how to learn and teach the kids. That's my point. And it can bring a revolution.
Rightly said, sir. Community-based education does fulfill a lot of objectives that modern education still cannot. And I would now like to ask if anybody in the audience or participants would like to unmute and ask any questions, if there are any. Or you could just put it in the chat box. Or if the speakers would want to add anything at all to the present inputs. Seeing none, Shaleen ma'am, should we put this to a close?
Yeah, sure. We have already, okay, somebody is raising hand. So, sir,
Yes,
you want
yes.
to talk? Rima, just check with,
Yeah, let me.
That is
Nisha
Nisha.
ma'am.
she wants to talk. Yeah, she wants to drop her question in the chat box.
Let me look into that.
Yeah.
Nisha ma'am, would you like to speak something?
Yeah, she is muted.
Ma'am, you can unmute and speak.
So am I audible right now?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Thank you very much for the beautiful session. I would like to thank all the speakers because a lot of question was answered, which I was having. My question is, see, this education is common for all, and this education platform should reach entire world uniformly. But what happens is, even still, when lot of speakers were talking, I feel the difference. We are still lagging a lot from their education because theirs are like the students are getting to know about volunteer. They are getting to know about lot of technical, as well as they are the parents and the students interactions are a lot more than what we are right now, right? Because even now we don't have the technological knowledge for the parents who are giving lot of lakh rupees to the education, but still students still in 7th standard or 9th standard, they're not able to read at least ABC as well. Because I have a lot of students who come to my tuition or something like that, even they lack this quality. So what can be made? Is there any possibility whether we can work together to have uniform education for all? Because everything we are talking for humanity, and everybody should know, understand, and come under the umbrella. So is it possible? Is there any steps we can take together? If so, I would like to ask from the speakers.
May I answer this question?
Yeah, John, sir. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, uniform education for all, that is a wrong concept. Sachin Tendulkar, had he gone for BSc or PhD, we would have lost a very good cricketer. Same way, many musicians and other people. So this standardized education in European countries, it is only up to 10th or 12th class. After that, the students go for their vocational studies. At the same time, there is a need to give uniform education till at least 10th class, so that the students can read and write and acquire knowledge, basic knowledge of reading and writing and all. So it is a very serious subject, and the policymakers must look into various aspects. And now the globe is opening up for the complete humanity, and we can exchange ideas. At the same time, we can focus on the strength of our small unit, that is family, followed by the village as a community. Whatever facilities are there in a village, that should be developed, and the village and small towns must become a self-sustaining unit. That is the only way to come out of this situation of people wanting to do the same thing. It is not correct. People should do what they want to and what they are expert in doing. I hope others will be able to give some input into this.
You are absolutely right, sir. Whatever you said, it just depends what a youth likes to do. in life. And yes, as Madam said, she can do one thing. If she is really interested to train and educate all the youth people, you can join Youth for Human Rights team. Youth for Human Rights team, they're doing a lot of campaigns, webinar. Even we are doing a lot of social work where a lot of people don't know how to groom themselves when it comes to, if they're going for some job interview or anything in their life. So Youth for Human Rights coming up with more awareness program and a study technology program. So if you join us, of course, you can start your own group and you can educate youth in your state. You can do that.
Yeah, thank you very much, John, and thank you very much, Das. So that was my dream. That's why I just came up. I'm not telling completely to stop what the career says, but still, whatever they study, it should be an individual-based contact, because that's what the point I was trying to say. And thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you. We are already into our session, and
Abhishek is there.
Yes, somebody is raising. Rima, just
Abhishek
check.
has written.
Yeah, Abhishek sir, would you like to unmute and speak? Yes, sir, please go ahead and unmute them. He said yes in the chat box. He isn't able to unmute. No problem, sir. Maybe just put your opinions in the chat box and we can all have a read.
Hello.
Abhishek,
Yes,
you are
sir. Go ahead,
unmuted
sir.
now.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. So I would also like to share one concern, which many people don't focus on the earlier stages. Like, say, for example, there are many institutions in India which doesn't have the regulatory approval. Still, they are running some of the courses. And the students pass out and they receive their certificates and this statement of marks as well. But later on, after some years, they realize that their degree or their diploma wasn't recognized. So these awareness should be created during their initial days of passing out. Say, for example, somebody is about to complete matriculation or a higher secondary certificate. So that time itself in the institutions, it is to be mandatory that they should be given such kind of awarenesses also. Because nowadays, you might be aware that many people, they are applying to PR visas for Canada and for other countries. That time they go for this WES evaluation and all that things. That time they come to know that, oh, their diploma or degree is not recognized. Then they are completely shocked. They are surprised. Because in India, every course has to go with the regulatory approvals. And we have to check approvals also before we enroll for such courses. But at times, these awareness lacks among the students, also their parents. Again, this is a big problem in India. So can anyone throw some light on this, please? My request.
If people are trying to go to Canada, there is one agency who is ascertaining the validity of the certificate. Same is the case with many countries. Now there is a movement to make a global curriculum at a university level. And of course, it will take some time. Now we have to go through this problem, and the parents and students must be very careful when selecting the universities. That is my point for the time being, but gradually a time will come when a global framework of qualifications will be evolved. Now there are European frameworks of qualifications and national frameworks of qualifications, and India is also moving ahead to make the system at par with the global system. And I'm sure within our lifespan, we'll be able to see that global framework of qualification. You have got a very valid point, Abhishek.
Yes, absolutely.
And of course, this online system, it is making it work more effectively. We are exchanging ideas sitting in different parts of the world. And this is a huge step, which we couldn't imagine 2 years back. We had no time for this. Now we have time and we are focusing at the right place, and it will give good results, of course.
Rightly said, sir. I would now like to ask Shaleen ma'am if she would like to give the vote of thanks.
Yeah, so we have already come to the end to our session. We have exceeded our time because it was amazing session. Lot of we had communication, and yeah, I would like to thank Danny, John, Ron from joining us, and yes, everybody liked it. And I would like to thank Knowledge Teas. The founder president is Dr. Nitish Kumar, and Mehak Rathi, she herself is a director, for giving this platform so that we can reach a lot of people, and Youth for Human Rights India chapter for coming up new webinar where we can create more awareness program. And I would like to request to all the participants, if anybody is interested to join Youth for Human Rights team, my mail ID is already there. They can contact me. Here is 30 article where you will come to know about your rights to life, and then only you can train others. And yes, we are just promoting Youth for Human Rights and doing a lot of awareness program and making human rights a global reality, so that if anybody see any injustice or corruption happening in front of them or with them, they can take stand. And this is really required, especially in India, because a lot of domestic violence are going on, and men, women, kids, they all are the victims. So we can stop if we can train everyone when it comes to human rights. So yes, we have come to the end, and thank you so much. Till then, stay tuned with Knowledge Teas and Youth for Human Rights India chapter. We will come up with new webinar. So please stay tuned with us. Over to you, Rima.
Thank you, ma'am. I personally had a lot to learn in this session today, and I hope everyone else is taking something else with them. And I'd like to thank everyone for their inputs, and that's all. Good night, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Namaste.
Thank you. Namaste.
Thank you so much.
It was a pleasure being with you.
Thank you, Danny. Same here.
Ron, thanks a lot.
Bye,
Thank you.
everyone. Should I end the call now?